let's dive into something that, well, it just doesn't seem to make any sense. We're told that pretty much every single country on Earth is in debt. But wait a minute. If everyone owes money, who exactly did they borrow it from? Who is the world's creditor?
It's a question that honestly sounds like a riddle, right? And to even begin to unpack it, you first have to get a sense of the numbers we're dealing with, and trust me, they are absolutely staggering.
So let's just try to wrap our heads around the scale here. Take the United States. Its national debt right now is sitting at over $38 trillion. That is by far the highest it has ever been in the nation's entire history.
And look, this isn't just an American thing. Not at all. If you hop across the Atlantic, the European Union is carrying around $14 trillion in debt. Even economic powerhouses like Germany and China are on the hook for absolutely colossal sums of money.
Okay, so what about everything? The whole planet? Well, get this. Altogether, the world is swimming in over $315 trillion of debt. Let me put that in perspective for you. That's nearly 3 times the value of the entire global economy. How is that even possible?
To make sense of this, we've got to kind of flip our thinking on its head. Let's stop looking at this mountain of debt as some kind of horrible mistake and start seeing it for what it really is. It's the fundamental architecture of our modern world. And here is the key, the big secret. The world doesn't owe all this money to some alien civilization or a shady villain in a volcano lair. The world owes this money to itself. It's a gigantic circular system where every single country, every bank, even you and me, we are all simultaneously a debtor and a creditor.
So how on earth did we build this crazy circular system? Well, to figure that out, we actually have to go way back in time. Because this whole thing didn't start on Wall Street, it started on the battlefield. Picture this. It's 1694. England is locked in a brutal war with France, and it's flat broke. So the king comes up with a brilliant idea. He asks a bunch of wealthy merchants for a massive loan, and in exchange, he promises them a steady, permanent stream of interest payments paid for by, you guessed it, future taxes. That promise, that IOU from the government, that was the world's first ever government bond, and it was a total game changer. The idea spread like wildfire. Soon every major nation was funding its wars and ambitions not with the gold they had in the vault, but with the money they promised to collect down the line.
And this quote just nails it. This was a massive shift in how power worked. All of a sudden, a country's financial credibility, its ability to convince people to lend it money, became just as important as its armies. National debt wasn't a sign of weakness anymore. It was a weapon. Okay, so that's the history. Let's fast forward back to today and finally get an answer to that big question, who actually owns all this debt? And the best way to figure that out is to look at the biggest debtor of them all, the United States.
You've probably heard this a million times, right? That America owes all its money to other countries, especially China. Well, that's just not true, not even close. The reality is about 2/3 of America's public debt is owned by Americans. It's held in their banks, their pension funds, and even by the U.S. Federal Reserve itself.
And hey, let's look closer at that 33% that is held by other countries. It tells an even more interesting story. The single biggest foreign owner of U.S. debt isn't China, it's Japan. In fact, despite all the headlines, China holds only about 2% of America's total debt.
So let's just walk through how this actually works, because it's like a closed loop. Step 1, the government needs money, so it issues bonds. Step 2, American people, banks, and funds buy those bonds. Step 3, the government collects taxes from its citizens to pay the interest on those bonds. And Step 4, that interest money flows right back into the retirement and investment accounts of other Americans. Essentially, America is borrowing from itself. And this whole idea, this lending money to yourself thing, it's not just America. It's happening everywhere. It's like a global game of hot potato. Japan lends to the US lends to Europe lends to developing countries, and then those countries turn around and lend right back by buying Western bonds. It's a giant tangled web of promises.
Okay, this brings us to the real secret sauce of the whole system. The reason it keeps going. It's because the debt of a nation works on a totally different set of rules than the debt you and I deal with.
Here is where everything clicks. When you or I get a loan for a car or a house, the goal is to pay it all back, right? The principal and the interest, to get to zero. For governments, that is not the plan. It was never the plan. The real goal is to just keep borrowing new money to pay off the old loans as they come due.
There's actually a name for this whole process. It's called refinancing. And it's not some sneaky trick.
It's official government policy everywhere. They treat their national debt like a Netflix subscription they never ever plan on canceling. They just want to keep paying the monthly fee, the interest.
So you're probably thinking, this is insane. Why not just pay it all off, get rid of it? Well, here's the craziest part. Paying off the national debt would be an absolute catastrophe. See, government bonds are seen as the safest possible investment on planet Earth. They are the bedrock of the entire global financial system. Banks use them as collateral, retirement funds depend on them for safety. If all that debt just disappeared, the foundation would crumble, the money supply would evaporate, and the global economy would almost certainly collapse. So this whole giant global machine, it runs on one single thing. And it's not money, it's belief. It's this simple, unwavering belief that the government will always be able to make its interest payments. But what happens when that belief starts to crack?
Well, we've seen what happens. Just look at Greece or Argentina or more recently, Sri Lanka. The moment international confidence was lost, the moment people stopped believing, the refinancing machine ground to a halt. And the result was economic collapse, brutal cuts to public services, and just immense human suffering.
But you know, there's another cost here, one that's a lot quieter. Think about it. All those trillions of dollars in interest payments have to come from somewhere. They come from taxpayers. And where do they go? They go to the people and institutions who own the bonds. This means national debt is constantly, quietly acting as a massive engine that transfers wealth from the general population upwards to the wealthiest asset holders. This quote just sums up the entire paradox perfectly. The secret to all of this isn't about repayment. It never was. It's about psychology. It's about maintaining confidence. The whole system is a performance, a story we all agree to believe in.
So we end up right back where we started, but the question looks a little different now, doesn't it? The creditor is us, the debtor is also us. The ultimate question isn't who is owed the money. The real question is, how long can we all keep believing in the promise? Because in a system built entirely on trust, what happens when that trust finally runs out?